Hello everybody, it's Mrs Rigby with the latest update on our plans for the reopen of school in September. We're going to be looking at the guidance that has informed these plans, what we're doing to keep the site safe generally, how we're unlocking lockdown with our bubbles, the new homeschool agreement, the transport and the staggered start and end times of the day, what to do regarding illness and absence, and I've also put the government guidance links in for you in case you would like to have a look at those. So these rationales and the underlying principles are based on Her Majesty's government guidance. So it currently says that we are asked to prepare to return all students to full-time education from the start of the autumn term. We're not allowed to put in place rotas or physical distancing measures that will require additional space and make it impossible for students to return. We have to make sure that people who are ill stay at home, that we've got good hand and respiratory hygiene, enhanced cleaning arrangements, and that we're encouraging everybody to actively engage with the NHS test and trace system. We're also looking at how we can reduce contacts between people in school and to reduce the risk of cross-contamination as far as is practicable. How we do that obviously is partly to do with how we arrange the students in groups, avoiding contact between groups, and also how we arrange the classrooms with forward-facing desks and that staff maintain distance from pupils and other staff as much as possible. I have included a few photos at the end of the presentation where you'll be able to see some of the measures that we've put in place, and I hope to be able to send you another update over the summer with some of the work that we'll be continuing to do. So general site safety, obviously there's a lot of measures that had already been put in place when we were in lockdown, and I've listed an awful lot of those things here. A lot of things have also now been introduced. So for instance, we have bought a lot of additional hand washing stations. So many of our classrooms actually have their own sink and students and staff are able to access those throughout the day. But for those that don't, we now have a hand washing station which would be shared between two classrooms. Now obviously those also require additional cleaning, and we're putting plans in place to make sure that we can do that. As you are probably aware, we now have our build team on site. So at the moment, we have actually lost the use of our school field because they're putting in 2 new temporary classrooms. However, we will get the use of the field back in September, which means we are able to maintain the bubbles or the tutor groups having their own play space. So that's quite important. One of the technological things that we've done is we've actually installed a thermal imaging camera, which as you come through, it automatically scans your temperature, and if your temperature is higher than 37.5, it sets off a discrete alarm that we're able then to look at that person and actually look if they have any signs and symptoms. We're also putting in place an isolation room and a toilet for any person that does exhibit symptoms during the day. Obviously, if that were the case, we have a process in place, and we would be then contacting family members for them to have a very swift pickup. So do be mindful that if you're at all unsure and you think your child is exhibiting symptoms, it might be wise to talk to us or to keep them off school that day and make us aware. Because if you send them in and they exhibit symptoms here, we would expect you to return and pick them up very swiftly. We won't be having any assemblies or congregations, but we are hoping to have virtual assemblies still, and so that students in their bubbles and across the whole school will be able to access those throughout the week. And we are having visitors by appointment only. We would also ask that families respect that. If it is an emergency, please phone the school first to see if we can fit you in immediately, because if you turn up, we are not going to be able to see you. So please phone us and then we will arrange an appointment. And please, if you can give us an indication of what the issue is, we can adjust how quickly we're able to see you, but we cannot take in any walk-in visitors. So, the bubbles and how we're going to unlock this lockdown. Clearly, for a lot of people, this has actually been a good time. Many of our students, and I'm sure some of you as families as well, have actually found that having some of the stresses and strains of everyday life removed have actually made things an awful lot simpler, and actually people quite like these lockdown situations. Now, for those students, it's potentially going to be quite hard to return because obviously they maybe don't want to come out of their bedroom or their home. So we're aware of that. We're also aware that for some people, particularly those of you that haven't been out about in the community very much, you might be very scared by what's happened and very concerned for the future. So in mind of that, what we're looking to do when we return is that students will remain in their tutor group bubbles for at least 2 weeks. During that time, obviously, they are significantly less at risk of cross-contamination because they won't be coming into contact with anybody else but the people in their bubble. So we're hoping that for those who are timid, anxious, or just struggling to get back to grips, it's not going to be overwhelming, that actually this will be quite a gentle start to coming back to school. There will be separate playground areas. There's going to be staggered breaks and lunch times. Lunch will continue to be eaten in the bubble rooms. Each person has an assigned space at a desk and a chair. They will have their own individual equipment, pens, pencils, etc. We're going to be wiping down shared resources, and we're going to have consistent staffing. Regarding the first 2 weeks in curriculum, this is very much going to be judged by the teams working in those bubbles and by senior staff. There will be some students who get back relatively quickly, want to re-engage with learning, and that's exactly what will be happening. There will be other students who are going to require a lot of time and attention to work through issues, concerns, and all sorts of things coming out of this situation. That will be done. So whilst we're in the tutor group bubbles, it's going to be very much on a needs-led basis. As soon as we feel the majority of people are able to go back to what we would consider our normal timetable, we will move to year group bubbles. So for most students, this will be their entire year group. If they're in Pathway 1, the whole of Pathway 1 will be a bubble. As far as possible, we will return to the normal timetable. And I say as far as possible because we're still working through some of the issues with that and still trying to address it. So at the moment, there are some issues around some parts of the normal timetable and curriculum that we haven't yet come up with our solution. But I'm a glass half full type of person, so I fully believe that by September we will have ironed out most of those issues. Where possible, we're looking that staff will actually move to pupils to teach them rather than pupils moving around the site, because again, that will actually cut down the risk of coming into contact with more people. And the curriculum will very much be catch-up at first. So although it will be the standard curriculum, it will be broad, they will be getting access to everything, we will be looking to see, are there any particular gaps that need to be addressed? Has there been any regression? Is there any overlearning that needs to happen? So we're very confident in doing this and are actually really looking forward to just getting back to what we all signed up for, which is teaching. So we'll be delighted to actually get back to that point. A few other bits and pieces that you might need to know. Breakfast Club will be open, as will Tuck Shop. At first, we're not intending to have any off-site trips, but we're hoping that those will resume within the first month of being back at school. We're not intending to have any after-school clubs for the first half term. We're doing this because there are an awful lot of factors to organise and take account of, and we're not entirely sure how some of these are going to work out in September. So what we're going to do is we're giving all of us a little bit of breathing space to say, let's see if we can get back and get this bit right, and then if we've got that bit right, then let's look at opening up clubs, etc. If any pupil is required to self-isolate, then we will be offering remote education. And something I should have written on here, but which I didn't, is that students will be required to wear their normal uniform from September. Obviously, if you can change as frequently as possible, to, again, slightly reduce the risk of contamination, although it is a very low risk. Also, it's just good hygiene as well. Please be aware that those children who love their hoodies and don't want to come out of them, if it's not part of the uniform, they will be expected to remove it, which may mean then they don't have a jumper for school. So they do need a school coloured jumper. We are allowed to bring more items to school now, but we would like to limit that as much as possible. So things that your child can bring with them are things like lunch boxes, hats, coats and gloves if they need them when the weather gets a bit cooler, and school bags. But we're saying ideally if they can avoid bringing anything that's not really essential, that would be perfect. Thank you. So then we have a new homeschool agreement which is to do with keeping us as a COVID secure school. Staff have had an agreement as well, which they have all signed, and this is all in our attempt to keep everybody as safe as humanly possible. So this will be coming home to you in the September, and we would ask that you read it, hopefully agree with it because it's to keep your child and others safe, and then sign it and return it. It's also something that then you can have a copy of at home, so that if you're having issues with your child, or if there's concerns about something, you can refer back to this with them, say, you know, these are the rules and this is all part of keeping you safe. So as you can see, there's a part that we're saying what we will do as a school, what we're asking parents to do, and what we're asking the child to do. Parents, you might notice that your list is longer, and that's partly because you're kind of piggy in the middle between the school and the child. So it is quite a long list. I do apologise, but as I say, we're trying to be really thorough and to take account of every possible thing that we can that might just keep us all that little bit safer. So I would be really grateful if you could really take a moment to read that, and then when it comes home, to sign it and send it back to us. So, transport. This is one of our most complicated factors at the moment. Now, the school transport team are intending, as far as is humanly possible, to transport pupils according to the bubbles that we have put them in at school. And obviously what we have done initially is to put pupils into their form tutor bubbles. They are currently trying to work out how they do that. I have said to them I'm very concerned if students were then to be on transport for a considerably long time, and they have reassured me that they are intending that no student will be on transport for longer than 45 minutes. I am aware that I think some students are already travelling on transport for longer than 45 minutes, so actually if that happens, that would be a bonus to everybody. I've not yet seen the proposed list of vehicles and at the times they'll be arriving here at site. Because of the requirement to have additional vehicles to make these bubbles possible and to have distancing possible on vehicles, it's going to require a considerable number of additional vehicles, and we simply don't have the facility on site for them all to arrive at the same time. Neither would we want them to, because obviously if lots of people are arriving at the same time, then they're all trying to enter, and basically you have everybody coming across everybody else. Now what it means is once we find out what the staggered start times are, so for instance, bus A arrives at 8:30 in the morning, they would then pick up at 2:30 in the afternoon. So it would effectively alter that child's day by half an hour earlier. What I then need to do is I need to alter some of my staff's working times so that they're available to support that bubble. And obviously that means for you as parents, this could have a knock-on effect if you're working or you have children at other schools. So you can see why I'm saying that transport is a really key element and is one that is very, very complicated. As soon as I know what transport are proposing and I've made my arrangements with staff to ensure that I've got staff that can actually be here at those times, then obviously we'll be contacting families, not only of people who have schools transport, but those who are independent travellers and who are transported by their families, because we're going to be asking you to arrive with your child and to pick them up in line with the rest of their bubble. This is, again, the safest thing that we can do. And again, I'm aware that that may be issues for some people. We would really urge families, if at all possible, when we notify you of your time, to make attempts to stick to those times. If it is absolutely impossible, please phone the school and ask to speak to a member of SLT, preferably the assistant head who manages your child's team, to have a discussion about why this might not be possible and what other arrangements we need to put into place. Please be aware though that the more we deviate from keeping the students arriving in their bubble times, then the greater the risk of cross-infection is. So if you are at all able to stick with those times, we'd be very, very grateful. The other thing I need to make you aware is that no family vehicles will be allowed on site at all between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning and 2:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon. We no longer have our main staff car park because that is now our builder's yard. So we have staff that are parking all over the borough, lots of staff who are coming on bikes, lots of staff who are parking on friends' driveways and walking in. So we are already very, very packed in our main car park. Adding to that the huge additional number of vehicles that will be coming on site, I hope you understand why we cannot allow any family vehicles on site at all during those hours. Please don't think that means you could come on at 8 o'clock and then sit in your car until 9 o'clock when your child is to leave. You won't be able to do that. If you can't drop your child before 8:30 and after 3:30, then you cannot come on site with your vehicle at all. And I know I'm really stressing that point, but this is one of my key concerns, is the safety in our car park. Because yes, although COVID is a risk, so is being run over. So please, please be mindful of that. So illness and absence. I don't know about you, but I think because we're not all mixing as much, there don't seem to be as many illnesses. So hopefully, I'm hoping that general illnesses will be significantly reduced and we're all going to be much healthier, which would be great. So as you know, from the start of the autumn term, all pupils are expected to be in school full time unless they've had an extended shielding letter. So if you have had or do receive an extended shielding letter, please can you make the school aware and be prepared to share a copy of that with us, so that we can then use that when we're speaking to the school participation officers. So the first day back for all pupils will be Thursday the 3rd of September. I am aware, as I said earlier, that some of you may struggle to get your child to attend, so we're already aware of some of you that have said you're struggling and we're providing you with support. If you become more concerned over the course of the summer as it gets nearer to September, please feel free to either email the school, phone the school and leave a message on the school answer machine so that we are aware that you are struggling and that we can pick that up immediately in September so we can support you in getting your child back to school. That being said, please don't send your child to school if you suspect they have symptoms of COVID-19. If you're not sure what to do in that situation, give us a call. But obviously there's the test and trace system in place now, and we would ask that you engage with that and then notify the school of any results. Because that way, not only does it keep us as a nation safer, it also helps us know that actually if it comes back and the result is negative, then actually your child is safe to return to school and resume their education. Regarding just general absences, not particularly COVID related, please phone the school as early as possible on the day of the absence and by 8:30 in the morning at the latest. If there's no one available to speak to you, you can leave a message on the answer machine. Please make sure you speak very clearly because sometimes it's a little indistinct and hard for us to hear what you're saying. So make sure you say your child's full name, the tutor group they're in and the reason for their absence. Please can I remind families that holidays are not permitted in term time. I am aware that because of exceptional circumstances arising from the pandemic and lockdown, there may be some of you who have different arrangements in place through no fault of your own. If that is the case, then please be prepared to provide evidence of that situation so that we can support you. I promised at the beginning that you might want to see some government guidance. So we've got various guidance here. The top one is about the actions that schools have to take during the outbreak, and it's partly to do with the reopening of schools. The next document is the guidance that was specifically for special schools, and that was on the full reopening. So that's been my Bible for the past couple of weeks. The third document is what parents and carers need to know about schools during the coronavirus. And the last one is the NHS guidance on best way to wash your hands. It's also got some videos, etc. If you do click on any of those, what you'll find is there are then lots of links to other guidance. Lots of the guidance is quite repetitive, so I think I've picked out the key ones which should be of most interest to you.